Since I've started in 2015, I basically average about $10 a ride my entire career. Now that's may sound nice, but 10 years, how much inflation have we had in 10 years? So without diving into a whole bunch of spreadsheets and everything, all my stats over the years, if you look at the dollar per mile, I think the dollar per mile has been going down.
Welcome back to Turn Down for What, your source for EV news and updates. Like and subscribe for more content like this episode. Let's dive on in. Welcome back to Turn Down for What. Today, we have a great episode. We're going to be bringing on two special guests. Jesse could not join us. He had a water issue at his house, a water leak, fixing it, whatever. But wanted to bring on two special guests to have a very unique conversation today, tied around rideshare in the EV space and what that all entails. So we have Mac from St. Louis, Missouri. Welcome to the podcast, and Tollack. Welcome to the podcast. Where are you from?
Me, I'm in San Diego County, California.
There we go. Okay. So yeah, wanted to kind of come on, have a unique conversation kind of about the EVs and the rideshare space, because there's a lot of I mean, obviously rideshare is a huge industry across the nation, but just kind of wanted to get two distinct perspectives. Obviously you guys kind of in two distinct areas, and I wanted to kind of let you first introduce yourselves, and then we'll kind of dive into the conversation. So Mac, introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, and how much of a Tennessee Titans fan you are.
Oh, you dirty. I'm Rob. Go by Mac Merritt online. I drive primarily for Uber. Do it on the weekends part time. Do it in my F-150 Lightning here in the St. Louis area. Been doing it for about 2 years, just short. A couple months after I got the Lightning. Just been enjoying it, and a lot of people asking questions about EVs and starting conversations that way, trying to dispel some myths about the EVs in general and the Lightning in particular. So
It tends to be a lot of what we end up doing. It seems like once or twice a week, I'm having conversations with people like EVs, and I'm like, I mean, it's not all that terrible, but yeah. Thank you for the introduction. Todd, tell us a little bit about yourself. On the spot, right there.
Hey, yeah, so I currently have my Model Y 2021. I've had it for 3 years, 128,000 miles. Before that, I was actually looking for a picture of it. I had my Chevy Bolt with a B. I had that from 2019 to 2021. I did 72,000 miles with that. And then before that, I had a Chevy Volt with a V and a Toyota Matrix. So I've been lifting. I've only done Lyft. I've never ever signed up for Uber. I've been thinking about it lately just because, markets and all that. But yeah, I've been driving since 2015 with the Matrix. And then I peppered in the Volt a little bit, and then the Bolt, and then now the Model Y. Well, currently off the road with the Model Y, but that's another story.
Gotcha. Yeah. I've taken several rideshare around, and most of the time, there's the EVs I've gotten have been by accident, but I went to two places recently that actually, I mean, now the apps, if there's enough vehicles in the area, you can actually select the electric vehicle option, get a premium for it. But I mean, it's just enjoyable in my opinion to drive an EV in that space. So definitely a kind of a unique addition to the space. So yeah, great to have you both on the podcast. Obviously driving a Tesla and driving an F-150, that's probably a slightly different experience with that, but just wanted to kind of both start. We'll start with you, Mac. Tell us a little bit about when you got into rideshare and kind of overall how your experience has been in that space.
yeah, I got into it shortly after getting the Lightning. I got mine in the first wave. I had technically either the first or second Lightning in Southern Illinois. Obviously, some people in Chicago got Platinums earlier, but got one of the first Lightnings in the St. Louis area. And probably a month or two later, I had to wait for them to approve the Lightning on the Uber platform because it was such a new vehicle. They just sat there and waited in 2 months. And all of a sudden, one day I got an email and I'm like, all right, let's go out and try this out. Had been watching videos of a lot of the Lyft and Uber drivers trying to figure out what to do and what not to do. I'm sure Tollek's got some stories that of various people, because some of them go so far as to put snacks and stuff like that in their vehicles, and others are very plain Jane. Uh, I just wanted to try it out. They were offering a fantastic $1 bonus ride for having an EV vehicle to begin with, so thought that was nice. You don't have to pay for gas in an EV, so I'm thinking, all right, I'm already ahead of the curve. I've got the solar panels and the charging station at home, so this is going to be cash in my pocket. This is going to be easy. And so I think I got to start at the beginning of October of 22, and I've just been doing it almost every weekend, other than maybe either inclement weather or we're taking the family on vacation once a year. Every weekend, just driving and talking to people and showing off the truck. And I drove tow trucks for years, so trying to keep drunk drivers off the road primarily. So it's not completely altruistic, but having been on the other side of it, I would much rather get people home safe this way than when I used to wreck run. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, 2 years of the space, obviously looking heavily with your Lightning in one vicinity. Have you seen positive response overall to being picked up in an F-150 Lightning compared to your average, Camry or whatever would pick you up? What has
oh
been the
yeah,
general sentiment to being picked up in a Lightning?
a lot of folks are really interested in it. A lot of them are super hyped out to finally see it because they've heard it. In our area, it's still kind of the lightning's still thin on the ground in the Midwest, as you very well know there in Tennessee. Even I think there's maybe 3 or 4 dozen rolling around the St. Louis area. If I had to guess, maybe twice that amount, but at least that I've seen.
Yeah.
So, and having talked with the Uber people, I've been told I'm only one of 2 Lightnings on the Uber platform. The other one is in Nashville. And I've been told
Wow.
by a passenger that there is another Lightning, a black Lightning, driving around Nashville, taking Uber and Uber Black rides, which is their top premium route. But
You need to paint your truck black and make more money.
that's why I told the wife, I was like, I should have bought black instead, so that I could have qualified. I get the electric runs, I get the regular Uber X runs, I now get the electric and comfort runs, but I don't get the Uber Black. But that's fine.
Does it literally have to be black?
Yes, it has to be
Yes.
a black vehicle on the Uber platform
Oh,
for it to qualify as black. Now they may have changed that, but it used to be
Tollack has
where
a thought about this.
okay,
Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, same thing
yeah.
on Lyft, and don't get me started on that. That's a whole yeah.
Well, that was
Much
what
nicer
Uber originally
vehicles.
started.
Yeah, much
Was
nicer
they
vehicles cannot be black, but I mean, I think it's just the executive that wants to be picked up in the black
yeah,
SUV
the
that's
black
trying to.
town car, the
Yeah.
black Yukon. That's what they originally Uber started, was the idea of an alternative to the town car service that people offered, and now they've gone down to you're getting picked up in anything from a Festiva to the minivans. So,
that's hilarious, man. So a Ford Festiva rolls up, but it's black. So it's
well,
so
no,
it's now
they
it's
have certain models that still have to
okay.
qualify because it has to have
Okay.
a certain number of seats and a certain amount of leg room. So that's why the Lightning qualifies under the comfort, along with a lot of the Teslas, because of the leg room, the quality, how new the vehicle is. But after they're 5 years old, they no longer qualify for the comfort rides. And I think it's only 3 years for the Uber Blacks. Like they're a real
Wow.
tight window. They want them to be top tier, like you're hiring a limo service.
Yeah.
Yeah, because legroom disappears after 5 years.
Yeah.
So is it
Yeah.
is it similar for Lyft, Tollack? And also thank you for getting the wear maroon memo that the other guys missed.
You beat me to it. I was gonna say, but I have tons of V-necks, so I got
If I'd have known that, I put the Aggie shirt on for Josh.
Hey, I mean, I'm just all things considered. Tennessee did win the College World Series championship against your Aggies. So, I mean, it is what it is. Congrats to the Vols.
Tip of the cap, sir.
And to your A&M, it was a hard fought. The end of the game, I thought in the ninth inning that they were going to pull off something, but we ended up pulling it off. So there you go.
Are those both SEC teams, by the way?
They are,
Yes.
It's SEC, man. I'm so tired of them.
SEC is
I'm sorry,
so far
we're good?
superior. Yeah, it's so far superior. I mean, I will stand with Mac on that one. SEC,
The superior
trumps all.
entertainment colleges.
Yes.
Let's get back to the pack, whatever we are now.
Sorry. I mean, I could go on college. We could have a whole episode about college football, but that's not the point of this podcast. So we will go back. I think Chris, you were mentioning something to Tollack about something Lyft. I don't know. Keep going.
we were talking about shirts, but then I've been rotating all my F the pump and all. I have tons of EV shirts, but because it's been so hot, it's it's all in the wash, so I had to wear a regular V-neck today. Anyway, on
Yeah.
Lyft,
Oh, out of spec. Shout out.
Yeah, I got the
Shout out.
the coast to coast trip shirt.
Yeah. Nice.
I love that
um,
one.
so on Lyft, they have, they're, because they compete, they kind of like do this with each other. And Lyft does also have black. Now, what's a sensitive topic for me is that Lyft got rid of, about a year ago, they got rid of what's called Lyft Lux. And that's where you can have a nice car like this with, the leg room and all that. And it doesn't have to be black, but people would pay a little bit more, well, significantly more for a nicer ride. However, once the new CEO came in and they were like looking, well, how can we, cut costs and all sorts of stuff like that? In their infinite wisdom, they got rid of shared rides. Actually, I don't even know if they got rid of shared, but Lux was on the chopping block, and they replaced it with something called extra comfort. So it still has like the extra legroom, but Lux had to have leather seats, and it was a certain amount of years of vehicles and certain types. But if you had a black Model Y, you can still do the black service. But so you have like black, Lux, and then regular Lyft, and extra comfort somewhere in the middle. But there's a lot of drivers out there that invested in these kinds of vehicles. I didn't buy it for this, but a lot of people have bought vehicles like this for the better pay. The drivers used to make double, like near double what a regular Lyft ride would pay, and they got rid of that. And now with their new algorithms and all this 70%, we could get into pricing and all that. You're barely making anything more on a premium vehicle nowadays.
So let's talk about that some. Like, what does it look like? How do you get paid? Where's do you keep all of the tip when there's a tip? Is there a mileage? Is there an hourly when there,
whatever you can disclose without getting in trouble with your
right
user agreements? And do you have like a roughly, I mean, obviously, Mac, with you driving on the weekends, and Tollack, I don't know how often you drive, but like, what do you see average, like dollars per hour, if you will, for the efforts that you're expending into that space?
I'll let Tollack go first.
Okay, so for the San Diego market, it's one of the better markets because it's an urban area. It's I think the 8th largest city in the United States or something like that. So there's a decent market, and I'll get a lot of people that say, "Oh, I got Lyft because it was cheaper," or the reason I never did Uber is because it was supposedly better for Lyft was supposedly better for drivers. Passengers also thought it was better, so whenever people got in. Anyway, so for dollars per hour, that's kind of hard to quantify because sometimes you have really busy days where you can rack up some it like depends on if you're talking before bonuses and other sorts of things. But even with bonuses, you're probably looking when it's busy, maybe 30 to 40 an hour, depending, maybe before, with tips. The problem is they keep lowering what they pay us. And then there's like these bonuses to try to make up for that. So I think the easiest way to look at it is, I think since I've started 2015, I basically average about $10 a ride my entire career. Now may sound nice, but 10 years, how much inflation have we had in 10 years? So without diving into a whole bunch of spreadsheets and everything, all of my stats over the years, if you look at the dollar per mile, I think the dollar per mile has been going down. And so if you have to wheel and deal to try to make sure your tips are nice, but tipping is so random. It's like any other industry. It's like some people always tip 20%. Some people never tip, no matter how well you serve them or how you have a great conversation and they're like, "Oh, this guy sucked." It's like, it's like any other thing in the service industry.
So how much is, no, I'm just trying to understand is the pay a combination of hourly? Is it a combination of miles? Like if I drive for work, I get paid mileage. And of course, part of the benefit, like when I drive, is the company's going to pay me mileage, assuming gas, and I don't have gas, so I really make out if I go and do a trip in my truck. Are they paying you mileage plus hourly? Do you keep 100% of whatever you get tipped, or do they take a little bit of that? How's that?
As far as I know on Lyft, they claim you keep 100% of your tips. I've been on some forums where Uber drivers kind of go like, "I'm pretty sure they're taking our tips," but as far as I know on Lyft, they don't take tips. So the regular pay is a combination of time and distance. Historically, now it's just I want to call it bogus because it's really algorithmic based now. They have this upfront pay estimate, which kind of showed up a few months before they got rid of Lux. So they did a lot of restructuring. The original CEO is gone. This new guy, David Risher, is in there. He puts on a good face when he goes on Bloomberg and stuff like that. But when you really get into what he claims versus what's happening, it's hard to say. But so they have this upfront pay thing, which is like it'll tell you. Now the thing is, the trade-off is we now get to see where we're going and how far it is. So let's say Janet wants to go for a 10-minute ride 10 miles away, and now they include like, oh, this is going to be 50 cents a mile to help you calculate what you're going to get. But we used to have what are called rate cards, where it was a fixed base rate of we used to be paid like 23 cents a minute and 65 cents a mile. Now the rate card only pops up if the ride gets adjusted from the upfront figure, but even that rate card would pay us more than what their upfront pay is now. So it's a little bit of a sensitive subject with me. The past year, Lyft has really changed, and a lot of drivers are not happy about it. And if you search on Twitter, Lyft driver, etc., you'll find threads and threads of like screenshots of like what's going on. So I don't know how it is on the Uber side. Again, I've never done Uber. I do want to do it because my Model Y is out of commission because it's I got rear-ended a few months ago, and I've been trying to get it fixed. But I wanted to do the Ford drive because I talked with Mach-E Vlog. They were really hyping up the Ford drive where you can rent a Mach-E, but it's only through Uber. And since I've never done Uber, you need to have a minimum of 100 Uber rides and a minimum rating to be able to rent the Ford Mach-E. But I'd much rather rent the Mach-E than the Polestar, and we can get into more of that later. But anyway, long story short, yes, it's sort of based on miles and distance, but not really anymore.
Sounds complicated.
Sorry, that was a lot.
The algorithm obviously dictates the price based on the time of day and the demand.
Yes.
But let's say that you book a ride from the airport to a house, and it's Uber. Do you have a knowledge of this? But let's say Lyft quotes me as the driver a $50 expense to get from the airport to my destination. How much of that do you think you end up walking away with? Do you have any clue?
It's less than half of that now. So
okay.
So going back historically, 2015, it used and Uber. So it was Uber and Lyft did the same thing for all. Uber would change it, Lyft would follow suit. We used to get 80% of the ride back in the day, and then Uber started doing this thing where new drivers will get 75%. The existing drivers will be grandfathered into 80%. Something similar happened with Lyft. There was a couple years where I stopped driving, and so I came back to the scene after some of these changes had happened. But literally, it was here's the fare. So if it's a $10 drive, you would get $8 plus tip. Then it started changing where they started adding fees on top, but they said you'd always get this certain percentage. About 1 to 2 years ago, it was looking like we were collecting about 50 to 60% of the fare. And then lately, we are seeing like 30 to 40% of what the rider pays goes to the driver. And the reason I want to bring up these numbers is Lyft currently has this thing out there saying minimum guarantee that you will make 70% of the fare after external fees. What they then are now doing is they're calling all of their commercial ride insurance stuff and all the things that Lyft has to pay for as external fees. So let's say out of a $50, let's bump it up to 100 just to have round numbers. So out of a $100 ride, which is the case to go to the airport sometimes. So out of $100, 50 will go to external fees. And then you'll get 70% of the remainder. So 70% of 50 is less than half of $100. So
$35.
Do you see their fee? Do you know what they're paying? Is that transparent to you, or do you not know what Lyft is getting?
They have these new they have the breakdowns now. They say that they say that the external fees are estimated and they get reconciled over the week. However, unless you fall below that 70% guarantee, again, 70% after the fees. So that's not 70% of the fare. And the problem I have with this is it's very misleading to riders, because if you see this ad campaign, you're like, oh, Lyft is paying the drivers great. So if you're taking a $100 ride, you're going to assume the driver's getting close to $70, because as a rider, you have no idea how much external fees are. You might be like, oh, like $5, $10, whatever. No, it's most of the time we're collecting less than half of what the rider is paying. And they do break it down for you, but it's an estimate. And then some of the rides, Lyft claims to only have made like $1.55 out of like a $50 ride. But again, they reconcile for the
But
week.
that's what they're labeled their profit before they've built their marketing and they've built their international multi-million dollar campaigns and otherwise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Reminds me of when Tesla does the it's this price, and then in the fine print it's like if after federal tax rebate, after gas savings, and you're like, you're kind of tricking me on that with the gas savings thing. And yeah, what are you seeing over
Yeah.
there in Uber, Mac?
Uber is very similar. Like Tollack was talking about, I started probably 2 to 3 weeks before they had changed. They had just done the rate card, so I was trying to get used to that, and they did the upfront pricing update. And I've been hearing from a lot of people and talking again, like he talked about on Reddit and other different forums and whatnot for the Uber side. It's very similar. We went to an upfront pricing, so you get to see where you're picking people up, where they're going, how far is it from you to them, which this is useful because some people just grab anything and everything, which is what Uber and Lyft want you to do is take 100% of whatever rides are thrown at you. And sometimes it's absolute trash. They want me to drive 20 minutes to take somebody 2 miles. And I'm not going to waste my time for that. Like you want me to spend more time and energy to do that than what I'm going to get paid. So I'm very selective, but yeah, they have a way that you can log into the Uber website and look at all your rides and get a breakdown. And they got caught. Their CEO, Dara Kurashashawi, I butchered his last name, but he himself, I guess, last Christmas decided to Uber for a week to see how well he did. And he goes, "Oh, the drivers are losing money. We need to correct this." And most of us are understanding you have to have servers, you have to have insurance, you have to have expenses to get this app to work. We're not greedy people. I was like 20-30% of what you guys take. That's a fair number to me for a big company with the insurance and all that, like you're talking. But on some of the rides, it shows up as me getting 79%. On some rides, it's in the 60% range, which may not be good, may not be great. And some of the customers have gotten into like, hey, how much are you getting paid for this? Because they're curious too. And I'm like, well, it told me that I'm getting $15 for the ride. They're like, that's crap. We paid $32 for this. And I'm like, oh, how about you cancel? You pay me. No, I won't do that. Because then I lose the insurance while they're in the car. And if anything happens, but they've offered that. Like, no.
Off record. Most of the times, if I like a driver and I'm coming back to that area, I get their private number and say,
yes. Now I've done that. And I'm sure Tollack's done the same. I've got a lot of regulars in the little area. I mostly stick to the one county on the east side of St. Louis. As is kind of infamous, St. Louis is not the safest city in America, and we're a smaller market than San Diego. I think we're only the 26th or 27th largest city in America. We're very spread out, and there's a number of rivers in between. So different neighborhoods at different times. And I've noticed that depending on where I'm driving, I get paid more in some neighborhoods than I do in others. And the same for pickup and drop off. So it can be more profitable. I've found that working the 2 or 3 college towns with their bar districts is more profitable, taking a lot of $7, $8, $9 runs than these people who go and sit at the airport and you have to sit in. I tried that a couple times as well, and that's when I decided I don't like this because you sit in a pool and you wait until your number's called, and sometimes you might be there 20 minutes. Sometimes you might be there an hour and 20 minutes. Just depends on when the flights are coming in. St. Louis, again, not a major destination. When we had TWA 20 plus years ago, it may have been, but San Diego at least is busy. Chicago is busy. Dallas, Atlanta, those would be great places to sit in a airport parking lot. You're going to make a lot of money. I went over there and I sat for 45 minutes and then got a $22 run. So going back to your earlier question of how much you make per hour, I find that working in a smaller area with more selective rides, I can average $35 to $40 an hour here in the Midwest, which, no offense to the West Coast and the East Coast, that's worth more money. We don't pay as much for the property values and expenses as here in the Midwest as you do on the coasts. So my $35 is going to go farther than Tollack's 35.
Well, so, and that's if we get to 35. In this area, the fast food minimum wage is now $20 to go work at McDonald's, and you don't have to trash a car to go make $20 an hour, and you don't have to do crazy 1099 taxes and all that. That's the whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
So that leads to an interesting question. How as a driver have you experienced people treating your vehicles has it been a challenge or in general, or is it okay with a few exceptions?
For me, it's been okay with a few exceptions. I just had the unfortunate. I think I posted this on my X account. I just finally had my first person throw up in the vehicle, and it wasn't one; it was two. The front seat and the back seat, both on the passenger side, they both threw up within a matter of minutes of each other. And then had the unfortunate incident of once we got to their apartment, the guy in the back seat thought he could get himself out of the vehicle and just took a nose plant onto the ground. So dealing with vomit and blood and ambulance and police, it was an interesting night. But for the most part, everybody's very appreciative. They're nice to the car. They're very they're interested by how large it is, how quiet it is, how fast it is. And I try to keep it clean. It's the first new vehicle I've ever had. I've had nothing but crap boxes my whole life. So this is my first new vehicle.
Now, was this at that college bar district you were just talking about? That
yes, and again, usually I've been good, and something that night told me to just cancel and drive off on these guys. But it was closing time, and I felt bad for them. And I've heard the horror stories about them sitting out there for 45 minutes to an hour trying to get rides home. And I've been the drunken guy with his buddies in the Marine Corps trying to get somebody in the back of a cab. And these two guys got in, and the one guy just started throwing up, and the other guy thought he was all right, and the smell hit him, and yeah.
The question: do you get any allocation or extra charge for that expense to make up that, to remedy the situation?
If anybody makes a mess in an Uber, they get we take pictures and submit it. You can get a $50 fee, and any type of bodily fluids, whatever the bodily fluid is, let your imagination run wild, is up to $150.
Which back in the day would be 250. So a lot of times people would be like, "Oh, please throw up in my car," because you'd be out cleaning it for an hour or two and you make $250. You'd make $250, but I can't imagine trying to do that. But yeah, they have lowered what the cleaning fee is over the years as well.
With an EV, I mean, it's a lot easier to make a drunk person get sick with launching them around in your truck. So, I mean, do it on purpose now, Mac.
No, my first couple of times doing the Ubers, I was having to learn about not taking off so fast and slowing down with the one pedal drive, because people were like, "I'm getting kind of motion sick." I'm like, "All right, so I got to learn the smooth rides."
Yeah.
And
I try to drive smoothly in general, just because a lot of people enjoy, you're such a careful driver, but. Yeah, if I have a hint of like, oh, this person might be drunk, I go into super grandma mode. I pretend I don't have an EV. I'm braking super early and smooth because I know I don't want to incur that. Now, I typically try to avoid the hours where anyone is that. Every once in a while, I go long enough where I'm like, okay, it's 11 midnight, and okay, I might as well head home. Oh, I'm near the beach where the bar is, blah blah, and knock on wood, so far I've not had a throw up in my vehicle, but I do have some awesome 3W mats that I got, which are great for cleaning. If anybody does, check out 3W mats if you check that out. But yes, having a vehicle that's the easy seats to clean is good. Even though it's not throw up, I've had people, some ladies that they had that glitter stuff all over them, and it was like summer, like Pride Month. They're out in Hillcrest with like these were somewhat, these were thicker women, and they had, more skin touching the seats. I'll just say that. And, the glitter got in there. And so I had to get my cloth, even though I had easy to clean seats, it was hard to get that glitter out of the seats. So it's not always throw up, you have a lot of different things to deal with. Real quick, I don't know if we want to get this out of the way. So this is a ride example. Now this is as I was renting my Polestar, but here's what we kind of see these days. We have passenger payment. So that tells me, I don't know if that's true, but Lyft says that the passenger paid $70.85. Here's the external fees. And I could expand that, but it kind of gives you it talks about maintaining the platform and all that. And then it has how much Lyft made. And then here's what I got paid. So if you do the math, that's less than 50% of the ride.
That's crazy.
That's probably like 33% of ride. And this is like your typical ride.
Yeah, that's shocking to me. I mean, the fact that it's not even 50% when you're doing all the labor. I understand they have infrastructure and they have to start the company, but man, I
always assumed it was like 10 to 20% off the top, and that would be it.
Yeah,
that's what it used to be. That's what So the analogy I like to use is they are the casino. they could make 5 to 10% off every ride, but they have millions of drivers out there across the world or whatever their platforms are. We only earn off of what we drive. So when you go to the casino, you can only earn off the hands you play. Now you could have the analogy falls apart because you could play multiple hands at the casino, but as an individual person, you know, the house is winning off of everybody. Even if they lose on this ride and this ride, they're winning off everybody else that's playing at the casino that day. So that's where it's kind of like, I think 10 to 20% should be the most they make, because one, they've already built the networks that, like, I mean, yeah, they're maintaining them, and they have some W-2 employees that are now, Lyft moved a lot of them to Nashville. They got, you know, they used to have all of their regular employees that weren't drivers in San Francisco, but a lot of them got outsourced to Nashville.
What's interesting is you're struggling to make $30 an hour, and Lyft as a company made $4.4 billion in revenue last year.
And they claim they're losing money.
Yeah.
Well, because they're doing the thing where they write off everything. So
it doesn't seem like the math pans out, because, you know, even with the amount that you, first of all, at a minimum, I would think it would be a 50-50 partnership at an absolute minimum. And to your point, I think more like 70-30, 80-20 seems more like what it ought to be. But then out of your portion that you've got there, Tollack, unless it's somewhere else, you're having to pay for your charging, you're having to pay for your insurance, and then even with whatever's left, I'm assuming you are then, in your case, I don't know what it is for you, Mac, but you're paying, I know from California, you're paying California state income tax, you're paying federal income tax. I mean, it is whittling that away. So even though they have their insurance and they have their business taxes, it's no different for you. So they shouldn't be taking more than half, because their expenses certainly shouldn't be any different, you know, except you've got energy costs that they don't have. So that's crazy.
Well, even though as electric, you know, I can't, even back in 2015, like I had a 2015, I had a 30 mpg Toyota Matrix base model, and, you know, I was doing okay. Gas prices were probably around $4 to $5 back then. Still, you know, it's been hovering around 4.5 here in California, plus or minus $1. But ever since I went electric, I'm like, I don't know how anyone could even try to make money on. Like, I see Forerunners running around, or even funnier, you see like vehicles that don't qualify for like the more, because when you drive like a Suburban, you qualify for Lyft XL, which is the bigger vehicle. So, and a lot of times people, they used to confuse Lux with XL. So sometimes people order Lux thinking it's a 7-passenger vehicle. I'm like, no, that's XL. I can't take 6 people plus their bags to the airport. I'm sorry, no. So gas. I can't imagine even driving like a Dodge Charger or even a Camry, like a Camry getting 40 mpg maybe at $4 to $5 a gallon. But then you start, you know, the best is to charge at home. But even in California, on our super off-peak rates, Chris, as you know, well, I don't know what your Northern Cal rates are, but here, our off-peak, if I charge at midnight, is if I were to fully charge my 300-mile Model Y, that's about $10 to $15 for a full charge to start my day. So if you start your day with, like, let's just call it $10. It costs me $10 to fill up my car, and then I go to a supercharger where it's going to cost me $20 to get maybe 80%. I try to only supercharge once a day. In fact, before my accident, I was trying to do as much driving as I could without needing to charge. So I would get down to, I would reject the long rides. Then that's the other nice thing about being able to see where we're going, because as EV drivers, you know, there's that whole range anxiety, but for the passenger, you know, I've actually had people that needed to go to LA. They're like, oh, we don't mind if you got to stop to charge. We just need to get LA, you know. So some people are pretty understanding, but as a service provider, you don't want to have to get into that scenario where you have to stop for half an hour. But even with supercharging, and later on we could talk about the Polestar, it's expensive to public fast charge. It's close to the price of gas, and it also takes you off the road. You're not earning during that 30 minutes to an hour. So right. That's why, you know, if you can have like a Lucid with 500 miles of range, you could do a whole day of driving without needing to fast charge.
What are you seeing in St. Louis, Mac? Are you having to charge at some point? And even going back to real quick on the whole thing where the person did what they did. Do you keep 100%? First of all, did you get it reimbursed, or are you still waiting? And then
I got it reimbursed.
Okay. And then you keep 100% of it, or do they do like what Tollack is seeing? Do they start taking out fees out of what you're supposed to be getting?
No, so they take the fees out of all of the rides. If you get your tips and any things along those, like he talked about the bonuses, they give a bonus, which Uber has now taken away the bonuses for the last few months, which has really hurt because they also took away the EV $1 ride per ride because that was part of their whole going green thing. But now they've changed it to where you have to take 200 rides to get $210 as compensation. Well, me
Sorry,
being a part timer, I don't make that. So
yeah, the Lyft version of that, ever since they started it wasn't per ride, and this is when I first wanted to do Uber, was because you were getting that $1 to $2 a ride. And I was like, oh, that's great, I could do 20 rides and make 20 bucks. On Lyft, you have to do 50 rides and you get 150 bucks, but that's it. So if you do
And,
51 or 100, you don't get another 150 bucks
and what window? When you guys are talking about these, in what window do you have to do the 200 or the 50
weekly.
weekly?
for
200
us, it's
weekly
now
for
yeah, for us a month. It's a month for Uber for the 200 in a month. Which again, if you're a full time driver like Tollack and a lot of these other guys, that's easy to do. That's a lot of miles, a lot of time to put on the vehicle. But for me, I'm doing 35, 40 runs in a weekend, and like I might get close to it, but I would have to put another day. I do it on Friday and Saturday nights. It's not worth it for me to go out and try to pick 2 or 3 other days a week to go run.
and are you having to charge up at some point? Do you have your adapter where you can do supercharging if you
I keep my adapter, and the college town they just put in a Tesla supercharger that opened up right before Christmas, so that's been nice. I've only had to use it once since then, but it was nice to have it because in that town, which is a very affluent town, there's dozens of Teslas driving around. Not a Tesla charger. The closest one was 25 miles away in either direction, either on the Missouri side or the Illinois side. And I'm like, what's going on? And they finally opened it up. So everybody in that area has been super pumped. And there is 2 other Teslas that Uber in the area with me that I see all the time that they're super excited because they can pull in, get a quick jolt and go. And because I guess they take longer rides. I just stay in the area. I've even gotten to become friends with a lot of the bouncers, and they know that I'll take care of folks. So,
now how
but
do you
I
know
have
who
go ahead.
how do you know who else is driving? Because Lyft, didn't you guys used to have the mustache or something crazy? Did you ever do the mustache,
That's what
Tollack, or
I was trying to find a picture because a year ago they sort of brought a social media campaign back to like, oh, do you still have your mustache? I never got the original big one that you put on your bumper, but when I was driving, they had the mini one you could put on your dashboard, your in your windshield, and so it's about this big. So I still have my mini stash. I think I had to pay like 15 bucks for it. Yeah, but back in the day. But the problem is those original mustaches, they're like they started looking like mops. They got all gray from the road dirt, and so some people still have them. Every once in a while they'll bring them out. But in fact, Sergio Rodriguez
Lyft gift? Yeah, we've had him on. Yeah.
But I mean that's why his name is Lyft Gift because he was one of the original or near original Lyft people in San Diego. I think he has a mustache.
Of course
Yeah,
he does.
but we have the stickers just like we have the little like a elongated pill
Does it
logo.
illuminate? I think I've seen one
Oh,
illuminate.
Yeah,
so the
there's
one
a bunch of
so
them that
yeah,
have illuminates.
yeah, we have. So I don't think they give them out anymore, but those are called the amp, the Lyft amp, and it connects Bluetooth. And there's like a little text scroll on the inside that says "Welcome, Joey," or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, that's the things that for the Uber, they only give those out to people who take the 95% rides and don't have any cancellations and keep the 5.0 rating as a driver. I don't do enough rides to qualify for it. There is one guy in our area that has it. I've seen a few others in downtown St. Louis when I would take more runs down to the ballparks or the concerts. But a lot of people just tend to buy the little LED signs or stuff off of Amazon. That's what my original sign
Okay.
was just a little square blue thing that said Uber because a lot of people are coming out and they're looking for a Tesla or a Chevy Bolt or a Prius to see this big blue truck sitting there. They're like, But now I've developed enough reputation in the area that I drive that everybody's like, oh, yeah, he's good. Other people will be like, I don't know about this truck. And people walk by like, oh, no, he's the best. Get in that truck.
Yeah.
Jesse heard us talking about alcohol and decided to join us.
Hey. After basically electrocuting myself twice so far today, trying to fix a water leak, Yeah, that would be very much needed right now to get through the rest of my day. Speaking of lightnings, I could probably charge my truck with my finger right now. So
Ooh.
yeah, we won't get into so
Well,
many jokes that would happen from that.
well, we did a lot of discussion around obviously the Uber versus Lyft space, which is, unique conversation in general. It has nothing to do really with EVs. We had a little conversation about obviously the charging and that implications. Let's kind of wrap it up in a discussion around what are you seeing to be the value outside of obviously some cost savings? Have you seen any other perks or cons related to basically having an EV in the rideshare space?
Well, I guess I could kind of try to tie it together what I said. The Um, I wanted to clarify that I'm not technically full time. I'm sort of seasonally full time. So throughout the year, I teach music, or and now I'm doing more content creation, trying to do more YouTubing. So I actually haven't been on the road very much aside from renting. Renting an EV, you pay more for that. And they actually pay you less while you're renting a vehicle. So that's another hurdle to deal
That's a
with.
double dip.
Yeah. So they
So
make you pay for the rental, a premium rate. It was basically about 500 a week. Imagine spending 2,000. So it's basically twice what I pay for my Model Y. So you
now, is this what you did with the Polestar?
yes. So the Polestar,
Walk us through that. So you did it because he had been rear-ended, I'm assuming, and
yeah. So I got rear-ended a few months ago, and it's kind of during the period of the year where I wasn't doing much Lyft riding anyway. So I was like, okay, I'll weather the storm. I'll try to get fixed before the summer when I'm going to start driving more. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm still haven't fixed my Model Y. I'm dealing with insurance right now, but for about a 2 week period, I was like, okay, I need to earn. I'm going to go rent a car because back in 2017, I rented a Bolt. Back when that was kind of my first time doing fully electric, was driving a rental Bolt in 2017. Back then, it was 239 a week, and it included all your fast charging. It was an amazing deal. It was basically just try to get people out there, but you only had 50 kilowatt charging. But now with the Polestar, it's about 500 a week. If you It's like $8 a day extra to make sure you have the insurance, so that if somebody hits your car while it's parked somewhere, you're not liable for the damage, which it's kind of, so it's about $73 a day, and then about $20 in charging. So you have to make $100 a day just before you even start to make money for yourself when you're renting
wow.
a Polestar. And if you want to rent a Bolt or a Kia Niro or something like that, it's not much less. Um, it's
And to
about
be clear, though, you're renting this vehicle through Lyft, correct?
yeah, well, Lyft slash Hertz, and then Uber has their own agreement with Hertz. That's
Yeah.
where you see the Model 3s and the Model Ys. Unfortunately, Lyft does not have any Teslas through their rental service. But anyway, going back to my car, with the Model Y, I could do a pretty good amount of driving with my 300-mile range before I need to charge. And going back to what we said earlier about the fuel savings, the maintenance is where you really see the advantage of going electric versus a gas vehicle, because you're not needing to do your brakes really. As we all know, with regenerative braking, you get your energy back. So even though my Model Y has 128,000 miles on it, it still has the original brakes. So the maintenance, aside from my under warranty 2 battery replacements, but that's another topic. Aside from my warranty issues with my battery, my vehicle has been flawless in terms of maintenance of regular wear and tear on all the regular car stuff. So again, I don't understand how anybody can make money on rideshare with a gas vehicle unless you're just hustling constantly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, obviously renting the vehicle for somebody that's new into the space is a interesting topic, but one of the things I love about having my EV is the low maintenance. Obviously you're rotating, like I have almost 40,000 miles on my F-150 Lightning, and I've rotated the tires 3 times. And it's like, there is no for maintenance of a vehicle when you're doing so many miles on a rideshare type setup. Obviously fueling, if you can do it at your house like Mac does, with solar and like if you have all the energy generated for you, then all of a sudden you're basically really driving for free, because there's very low cost per mile associated with your actual expenses. So definitely a huge perk to the EV space. Obviously, the quietness of it, I'm sure, gives you an extra touch for the comfort experience for the user itself. But that's definitely definitely it seems like a good perk is the maintenance side of things.
And Mac,
Yeah, I
what
was gonna
was
say,
your did you have the standard range or the long range? And did you have an XLT or a
yeah, I have the XLT standard range. Yep.
yeah, so that's what are you seeing for efficiency? 'Cause are you doing mostly around town or are you hitting
Yeah,
freeways with
mostly
that?
around town. I try to again over the last year, I've tried to eliminate a lot of the longer runs into and out of St. Louis. And again, I've got some regulars or some nicer folks. As long as they're wanting to go to the downtown baseball stadium, they got an area there they call Ballpark Village, where there's several bars and restaurants. But the big issue with St. Louis, and the reason I try not to go there, is they block off roads at random, and that throws off the Uber app, which then makes the customers nervous, which makes me kind of nervous as well. And it's not a good recipe. So I just try to go where I'm comfortable. But yeah, staying around town, the efficiency this last week, I was seeing 3.1 on a
Yeah, so
on
that's
the XLT, which is fantastic.
yeah, that's great. Now with the
Yeah,
XLT, you have the added Tollack was talking about, hey, he's got those mats. Did you add rubber mats to yours? And you still
yeah.
got the
When
cloth
I've bought
seat.
the truck,
Yeah.
I've bought them the mats from Ford with the F-150 mats on there, and they've caught beers and they've caught sodas that people have tried to smuggle into the vehicle sneakily, and then that's where a few of the cleanup costs have come from in the past. And I've got two little ones. I've got a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old who do their best to make messes whenever they can. But again,
It's the way it
this
usually
my
works.
Yeah.
the wife has been very supportive, and she bought me uh, a shop vac, and she bought me a bunch of cleaning supplies, and I got the leather cleaner and the cloth cleaner, and yeah, it's a work to keep the truck nice, not just for Uber, but for myself. Again, having never had a new vehicle, I think the newest vehicle I had was the 2014 XLT that I bought. That was the first vehicle I had that was less than 10 years old.
And
Same
how
for
have your
me.
seats held up? Because they're
Good.
cloth. They're
They're called,
that
oh, they've held up great.
okay.
They do get stained, but the stains come right out. I hit them with the steam clean and a Bissell
That's good.
product, and they come up quick. I know everybody else loves their micro suede and vegan leather, but I wanted that's why I went with the XLT. I couldn't justify that price to the just over $70,000 mark when they first came out with going to the Lariats or even the ER on the XLT. I wanted the extra range, but 80
Yeah.
miles for almost $20,000 didn't make sense to me.
It
So
was my biggest hesitation was the I ordered the XLT standard range, and then I looked at the XLT long range because I really wanted the range. But it was, I mean, it was $20,000 more for the XLT. But then by the time you changed from XLT long range to Lariat long range, it was like $4,000.
yeah,
You got better speakers, sunroof, and I was like, I ended up biting the bullet on the Lariat
no.
extended range, but that's like that
I
was a
think you
very
made the right
tough.
choice for you, because I was looking at it as well, and I was going to go Rivian. Originally, I had ordered a Tesla Model 3, because I was trying to get out of my truck, because post COVID, I worked in food for 20 years, and I was trying to get out of, because I the restaurants closed. I had to make money. I started delivering pizza. Was making more money delivering pizza than I was working as a sous chef in steakhouses, and was running an old 93, 96 XLT pickup. And that was killing me $500 to $600 a month
Yeah.
in gas. And then I got the 14, and I was now down to $400 to $500 a month in gas on that big 36-gallon tank. And it had all the Lariat, it had the sunroof, it had the remote start, it had the heated seats and the heated wheels, which I miss all those things. But for what I get now, with the fact that I've had this Lightning and in almost 2 years, I've spent less than $2,000 charging it. That would have been 4 months on the road in the last truck. And I was going to deliver
That
pizza in
was
it,
the
but then
It was the
went to
exact
another
same
job.
situation for me. I did real estate, and I was driving around. I was spending $600 a month on gas because I was be all over my area, driving, and I was spending $600 a month. I had a 18 F-150. It was just your base ego boost, and we're getting some efficiency numbers. We'll just discuss that in a second. But anyways, I was spending $600 a month on gas, and my justification for the Lariat was I'm saving $450 a month on gas, and I can use that as a justified expense to get what I want on that side of things. Because I mean, I literally went from $600 a month to 70 max with my at-home charging. So it was
I've got you all beat. So I was pushing $75 a day driving from my house to Lenore, North Carolina, and back to a big hyperscale data center. And I went from $75 a day. We could charge when we went to that data center, and I would plug in, and I would get about 100 miles range when I was there. So I went from $75 a day down to $7 a day. And, to go from $1,400 in fuel down to whatever it was, seven times whatever, that was a huge difference and it was noticeable. So it basically paid for the truck plus some for that 6 months, 7 months that I was going back and forth. So it definitely, people don't see that right now. And I think that's the problem is they don't understand how much you can save by having one of these vehicles if you use it a lot.
And everybody has a different use case, but that's a use case specific. But for those people that have a lot of regional commute, it's a gigantic win for the average person.
In Tennessee, you're paying what, 9 cents, 12 cents? What's your
It's
cost?
about 11. It's about 11 cents on average. Yeah.
Where are you at, Mac? What's your
daytime? It's 15 cents. At night, I'm getting 8 cents.
Look at Tollack and I are like, what? So I'm doing my overnight Tollack is like 40 something. What are you at You're San Diego Electric, which is the highest, I think. I think PG&E is second to San Diego Electric.
Yeah, we so this summer I think I've been trying to find the current numbers. I think it's actually come down from last summer. Last summer peak was 81, but nobody is charging their EV from 4 to 9, well, at home from 4 to 9 p.m. and it was 15 cents at midnight to 6. So our cheapest rate was higher than these guys' regular rate. This year I think it's 60 peak and like 40 something mid, and it's down to like 12 or 13 again.
Oh, that's great though.
But it's still, if you do a full charge of 75 kilowatt hours times 12, 13, 14 cents, that's still like 10, $15 every day. Now the best, as you were saying, Jesse, about, saving, if you can charge at home and have a good rate and or have solar and a battery, that's definitely the ultimate scenario, or even free charging, but we don't want to go there. But yeah, it's tough when you have to public charge, because Electrify America has a deal with Lyft. So here, Electrify America is 56 cents just as a guest. With the Lyft discount, it's like 42. So the discount is still pretty expensive if you're fast charging with Electrify America out here.
Yeah, and Tesla's kind of in that same ballpark when you look at if they do their $15 membership, or they say 13, we got taxes in California, so it ends up being 15. PG&E, where I'm at, the cheapest EV rate overnight is 26.5 cents, the cheapest, which I still don't do, because what they do is they even though they get you 26.5 overnight, then they get you for 68 to 70 cents during your peak times. And so it just doesn't wash. Whereas the plan I have ends up being 40 cents, but less during peak. And there's winter comes into play, because I have a winter time of use and a summer time of use, but with the EV rate is the same across the entire year. In the summer months, and in the summer months,
my electric bill, if I lived in California, my electric bill was 70 cents a kilowatt, I'd pack up and move to Tennessee. But I don't know about y'all.
Well, what I was trying to show you earlier without, because the background gets rid of it, but $4,000 is what the Tesla app calculated what I saved in 2023. That's probably plus or minus $500, but yeah.
And you see the bigger difference in the larger trucks with the EV savings, because your smaller vehicle gets so much better fuel efficiency. 4,000 is a lot of money saved, but in a truck, with the efficiency is so gas mileage of 18 miles to the gallon versus electric is a gigantic spread when it comes to cost savings. Now, towing a boat from here to Colorado, that's a totally different story. But for use case of just driving a bigger vehicle, that's a big spread.
Well, Rob's that 3.1. Now that was city, right? 3.1.
Yeah, it was city driving 3.1. I would say on average, I'm getting 2.7, 2.8, but the last couple of weeks at nighttime, it's been so nice. And then just people are enjoying the rides. I was killing it at 2.9, 3.1 blew me away. I was like, okay.
My lifetime average for my truck is 2.4. And that
That's where
fits
I'm
you right
at.
at the 320 range for my extended range. But I do a lot of highway miles. And I mean on the highway I'm averaging 2 to 2.1. But around town, if I'm doing my regional commute, then I'm getting about 4 miles to the per kilowatt just because
Yeah.
lower speeds, regeneration, and those variables. So
My lifetime,
Tesla measures it differently. You guys
well,
do like, do you know the conversion on that, Tollack? It's
yeah,
a weird.
I've recently done this figure. So my lifetime on my car is 274. It was at 273 for a long time. So 274 watt hours a mile, which if you do the math, that comes out to about 3.66 miles to the kilowatt hour. On my
There you go.
Bolt, I was bouncing between 4 and 4.2. In fact, I think the lifetime on that car
Wow.
was 4.1 to 4.2. So from my Volt to my Bolt to my Model Y, I went from hypermiling to kind of hypermiling to driving a little bit more normal, but having the experience of knowing how to hypermile when you needed it. Because the first time I drove to Vegas in my Bolt, I actually averaged 4.5 because I literally was driving 57 miles an hour behind a FedEx semi.
wind
Was,
resistance plays a big difference when you're driving an EV.
yeah, and actually that was the trip where I met Kyle. I drove out there really slow, and then I was charging up at the outlets. Yeah,
That's
We got
awesome. So
to
you just ran across them. You didn't. It wasn't planned. You just literally ran
no, so
across
yeah,
them.
so it's somewhere buried in my Instagram feed. But my ex and I at the time, we were charging. We were going to Vegas. He was heading towards LA. When I got there, we were the only one at the charging station. This was, I think, 2021, wasn't he, when he did the Taycan run? And so we went to go get food at Buffalo Wild Wings because the Bolt takes a while to charge, and
Yeah, it does.
so when we came back, I saw, oh look, there's a Taycan. Oh, cool! And it's like all dirty, like it's all covered with the road dirt and everything, or road salts and everything. And then I come back, I'm like, oh hey, and then I see that one of the guys is on the phone. He's like, oh yeah, we're actually on the phone with Electric for America. We're doing a cannonball, and I was like, oh hey, that's cool. And then I think I recognized him. I think I'd seen some out of spec videos before that encounter, and then after that encounter, I was like, oh, that's the guy I met in Vegas. But we got a quick thumbs up photo, and he's like, oh hey, we gotta go.
Yeah,
They
that's
were out.
He
awesome.
does not stand still very long.
No,
we
Got
we,
to
we
meet him
all
in
got to sit
Chicago.
down. We hung out with the out of spec group at this Vegas Expo we were at 3 weeks
yeah, they
ago,
were
whatever it
great.
was. And
Nice.
yeah, that cool group, like all that they do for the space for sure. But
So,
we had Francie on the podcast 3 4 months ago. But
nice.
Kyle is pending. We're gonna have him some point.
There you go. Rob talked about the cloth seats. I had cloth on my Bolt LT. I just wanted to bring this up real quick. I myself prefer cloth as well. If Tesla,
Interesting.
just because texture, I'm a big texture guy, especially like coarse fabrics. The Bolt was pretty easy to clean. Plus, it was a lighter color. I hate getting in my Model Y with the black seats, and I get, with shorts on, I get singed getting back in. And if you check out on so I did a couple of videos for Out of Spec Guide, the guide channel. I did 100,000 mile update where I talked about the wear and tear in my Model Y, where my seat is destroyed because I don't have ventilated seating. That's the number one thing I want on my next EV because my
Okay.
lower back when I'm Lyft driving all day, I sweat. And my seat is, as much as I tried to clean it, you start cleaning it and it came up. So my seat is basically ruined because of my sweating. So I want ventilated seats and or a nice fabric option on my next EV.
Interesting.
Gotcha.
I just
Well,
think they
we
were easier to
are
clean.
yeah, we are running tight on time. So I will ask one final question to both of you to kind of to tie it all together. For somebody that's looking to get into rideshare, what would be the advice that you would give, maybe tied to EVs or maybe just in general? What would be the advice that you'd give as far as, entering the space and, potentially doing that with an EV?
Rob, why don't you go first?
Okay, I was gonna say the EV for the lack of maintenance. If you have a house that you can charge, the savings on it alone, way you maximize your earnings. And for me, that I've told a lot of people because I've had people ask if they were curious about starting it because a lot of people around here do Uber Eats and DoorDash, and they want to start doing the ride share. And I'm like, the biggest thing is don't take everything that's thrown at you. Be selective. Know your surroundings. If you're not familiar with the neighborhood or it's going to a neighborhood you don't like I don't, at certain time of night, like he doesn't go to bars. I don't go to the strip club area. We've got 2 or 3 areas in St. Louis that are heavily known for their strip clubs. I won't go there because I used to bounce there and people get shot there. And I don't feel like taking people into a dangerous area or putting myself or my vehicle in that area. Just be selective. You don't have to take every ride. They're not going to penalize you. They're not going to kick you off the app. Take what makes comfortable, and that was the whole point of the ride shares, was you can work when you want. If you want to work daytimes, if you want to work between shifts, if you want to work late night grabbing bar folks, that's the great thing, is just whatever you're comfortable with is the best part of ride share. And just have fun with it. You don't have to go overboard with all the lights. I've got some lights in my truck. I have fun with it. The bachelor parties, the college girls, the sorority, the frat parties. Have a good time. That's why I'm there for. I'm not a drinker anymore, so I enjoy being around that energy of those 20 somethings. But some people, they just want to take as many rides and make as much money. And if you're in that situation, my heart goes out to you, but do what's best for you. For me, I'm about having a good time and getting people from point A to point B safe and having a nice conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, he speaks pretty much all the main points, the maintenance and the efficiency and everything. And also, yeah, you got to make sure you're taking what you're comfortable with. And that also includes distance, especially in the EV segment. The one upside to now this upfront pay is that you're going to know how far it is. So if it's like going to be a 2-hour drive for 120 miles and you have 80 miles of range left, and you don't want to have that conversation where it's like, hey, I can take you, but we're going to have to stop the charge. You can select and make sure you're not putting yourself in a range anxiety scenario. Even though there is a lot of charging here in Southern California, you still need to make those decisions. You still need to work for yourself. You still need to make sure you're thinking about what you and your vehicle can do. For me, it's like if I detect a yawn or two from myself, I'm like, okay, last ride and I'm done. If I'm yawning and I'm like, okay, I'll do 5 more rides. No, that's not safe. You want to make sure that you got people's lives in your hands. So yeah, on the EV side of things, it does make a lot of things better. You're at the end of the day, you are going to probably, assuming cost parity, you're going to probably take more home than somebody that spent money on gas all day long.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. Appreciate the time today and the conversation. It's always good to connect with the various people that are in this space and to the different use cases of EVs. We all, we share the passion, and it's always kind of cool to see different areas and how that applies in the EV space. So a privilege to have you both on. I'm sure we'll have you both on, maybe together, maybe separate in the future for discussions ongoing about all things EV. So appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Turn Down for What. Tune in next week for more EV news and updates. Thanks for tuning in to Turn Down for What. Tune in next week for more EV news and updates. Make sure you're subscribed with your notifications on to be notified when we post more episodes like this one. See you then.